key to improvisation is preparation. I didn't prepare for this video at all. You can see my hair is a mess, my chest's a mess, but here we are. What makes you good at improvising is the preparation. Think about whose line is it anyway, and when they do the music improvisation. If they tried to improv that without any musical training or vocal training, it'd be terrible. They wouldn't get the right rhymes, they wouldn't hit the right keys, it wouldn't sound good. It would sound completely off, and people would turn it off on TV. But instead, having that preparation allows them to craft really cool music off of the fly. Funny lyrics that totally fit the character or the prompt that they're given. Now, that preparation is just trying out different things, trying out different skills, giving yourself that opportunity to practice what others have already done. And so you can have great performances, great improv, if you do the work to understand what is the thing I'm improvising, what is the structure I need to approach it. Go and try patterns that are pre-existing, that are non-improvisational, and they'll teach you tons of things. This is how you learn how to improvise a song. You go and you sing lots of other songs. You pick up little tricks, and you can use those little tricks in your own work. So the best way to be a good improviser is to go out and get experience, and then to weave that experience into something new that you're presenting an audience, that you're showing them. Just like this, I didn't have too much preparation for this. I had some mental notes, I had some thoughts about what I was going to speak about. I've done one of these talking heads before, and really the key to it is kind of catch yourself unprepared and embrace the aspects of where you're unprepared and match them with where you do have preparation. I kind of learned my best improvisational skills from doing improv lectures, not knowing exactly where the conversation was going to go, but having a good idea of the overall structure of what I wanted to talk about, having good context and information for that topic, and then knowing how to engage the students and the people in that topic to create an ongoing conversation. Sometimes they would have tangents, or I'd veer off into something. Sometimes they would be pretty straightforward. I think the key there is maintaining the through line and saying, where is the value in this improv? Am I trying to make people laugh? Am I trying to teach them something? Am I trying to discover something? Having a good understanding of the goal of your improv will greatly help. So the goal of this improvisation was to break me out of my shell, get myself back to talking head content, to give you something valuable that you can take away from listening to this, and to really complement all of the sides of improv with the stuff that isn't mostly talked about, because people really talk about breaking out of your fear as one of the number one ways to kind of be a great performer and be able to improv. And I think really that's just half the battle. Knowledge is the other half of the battle. And so coming to improv, you need to let go of that fear. You need to let go of the expectations that things are going to go perfectly or smoothly, because they almost aren't every single time. But that's part of the show. That's part of the engagement. That's why I find these interactive lectures that are kind of free-form and improvisational to be so valuable, because you get to questions, points, learning objectives that otherwise would be very, very hard to navigate to in a more formally structured format. So you improv, but you don't forget the structure. You got to keep that part of there. And furthermore, you always want to keep it rolling. I think that's something that's super important, right? And something I've been demonstrating very well in this video so far. You don't get caught up on a hang-up. You think, okay, I remember my through line, I remember the structure, the goal of this, and how do I keep circling back to that value, to that thing that I'm trying to give through the experience. If it's funny, sometimes you'll notice this in whose line is it anyway, especially they'll get to these kind of lulls where it kind of feels like, okay, I don't really know where they're taking the joke, but those little transition periods are what's setting up the punchline. It's setting up that thing that we didn't expect to arrive to because it's completely fresh, because it's completely new and off the top of the head. Now, you may take away a few things from this, but what I ultimately want you to take away is that your improv is a reflection of how prepared are you. You'll notice in a show like Rogue One, our main character is a rogue, a spy, and all these things. And he often gets into these situations where he is not prepared and he has to have an answer. But he is prepared in some ways. He carries a blaster on him. He knows enough connections to scrape his way by. Or, he's preparing himself in the moment to say, hey, if things go south, what do I do here? So really, you're kind of wanting to stay a step ahead of your audience, and even a little bit a step ahead of yourself, saying, okay, where am I taking the through line right now? Is this really tangential, or is this still delivering the value? And ultimately, I believe it's okay to have tangents. I believe it's okay to go way off that direction, just as long as you're able to bring it back in and help someone think about the through line, the improv. Now, why is prep so important? Imagine preparing a lesson for someone with 30 seconds of preparation. Let's say it's a lesson on how to give first aid to a 10-year-old kid. Now, 30 seconds of preparation, you're going to run through all the basic memories you have. You're going to think about, okay, how am I going to structure this? You're going to start with some sort of intro, and you're just going to jump into it and get lost along the way, which is great. I love that sort of stuff. But a little bit of prep, imagine if you had 10 minutes of prep time, you could go Google stuff, you could go search it, you could come up with a lesson plan, an actual conclusion that wraps things together. And you can have details that you may have otherwise gotten wrong or missed, or that were crucial to the overall value you're trying to produce for somebody. So again, prep is so useful, and it really shows up if you're not prepared. You'll see it in different moments of this video, right, where I was more prepared on some segments versus other segments. But ultimately, as long as you're able to maintain your structure and you have a prepared structure going into the improv, you'll do great. If you don't have the prepared structure, that's when things fall apart. That's when you run into these stalls. And if you're fibbing, you're lying to somebody, right? Not that you should, but if you do, you'll notice if you have some sort of structure going in, you'll have a much more easy time convincing someone of your falsehood than if you had no structure and you had no preparation going into your lie. You can improv many things. I would urge you to improv for good and to be prepared going into these things where, hey, I may not have all of the information or all of the resources or preparation that I'd like. Just be prepared to think about the structure, the through line, and how am I going to keep delivering upon that and circle back to that. Because at the end of the day, I like my stuff prepared medium rare. Just enough to get you by, but still enough that there's, some tasty rawness to the presentation. So thanks for tuning in, and I hope this was helpful. If it was, let me know. If it wasn't, and you think I'm a total lying sack of Socratic seminarhood, tell me. I would love to know. Thank you very much for listening to this rant, and I'll see you next time.